How are you? All right? Very well, thank you. You?
I'm all right.
Good.
Nice day. Nice day.
Yeah.
Well,
Can you tell us, what are you hoping to get out of this meeting?
I think we've got an agenda that was set by us by the Leaders' Conference in December, the successful UK-hosted NATO conference, and that work stream about building NATO capacity and cyber and hybrid is going to be really, really important. So it's quite a workmanlike type event at this meeting of ministers. We'll obviously ask questions about Iraq and Afghanistan and what next. But I think that's what we're hoping to get out of it, the deliverable aims as a result of the NATO declaration.
On Iraq, the US has made very clear they want to see NATO to do more in Iraq. Are you prepared to put British troops there, 400 at the moment, under a NATO mission? And also, are you prepared to increase the number, as the US seems to want?
Well, I think, first of all, we are there at the invitation of the Iraqis, and we recognise the votes that took place in the Iraqi parliament, and we are in discussions with the Iraqi Prime Minister and other ministers. So we will do whatever the Iraqis request us, and we think it's really important to be in Iraq, really to help them nation build, to improve their security by helping them deliver their own security. And so what we're going to explore is whether that NATO is the right organisation to help deliver that. The best solution for long-term security is capacity building. And if that's a possible thing to do, then we will, of course, consider it very strongly.
So British troops could be under a NATO badge
we
in
have
Iraq?
British troops there now, currently under either the International Coalition Against Daesh or indeed we already have NATO mission in Iraq. And so, yes, we could, of course, consider whether they need to change, but we already have British troops under the NATO initiative there at present.
Everybody knows there's likely to be a cabinet reshuffle tomorrow. I just wondered if you're at all nervous.
Look, I've been in this game long enough to know that, British cabinet reshuffles are brutal. It is at the decision of the Prime Minister who serves in his cabinet. I've been there before. I've been in quite a long time. I'm keen to serve. I enjoy the job as Defence Secretary. I'm a veteran. I'm a Northern MP. I was actually in the Army. So I think all of those hopefully qualify me, but who knows?
Secretary of State, in these post-Brexit times, how important is it that Britain really pushes forward in terms of its operations and work with NATO? And will you be using this Defence Ministers' Summit to put Britain back right at the centre of things?
Well, remember, Britain is the highest spender in Europe on defence. We're one of the second biggest contributors to NATO defence spending. We've always been at the heart of NATO. It's incredibly important for our security, for the security of Europe, and indeed for the security of the United States. So I think what you'll see is us to continue to commit to working with NATO, helping to drive forward modernisation, examining its purpose in the 21st century. But also it's an example of, just because we've left the European Union, we haven't left the security of Europe. That is incredibly important. And you'll see us do more with NATO, with the Five Eyes and other organisations, and indeed ad hoc relationships with bilateral with European countries or other countries where there is a security need.
And secondly, after the Huawei decision made in the UK, and Mr. Trump was apparently apoplectic with rage on this, how difficult is now the relationship in terms of security with the US?
It's not at all difficult. I've just had a very positive bilateral meeting with Mark Esper, my US counterpart. Britain's relationship with the United States, both security and economics, is very deep. It's personal, it's strategic, and it goes a long way back. So look, the British and the Americans on Huawei obviously have a difference of opinion. However, we both agree that our ambition is to ban them from the sensitive parts of our network, cap their contribution to the wider network, and indeed aim to cut them out of our networks in the long term.
Can I ask you a question about, you mentioned Afghanistan. There is talk of getting nearer to a peace deal. Do you think we are there yet? And do you think there is even the possibility of contemplating bringing some British troops back if there is some kind of peace deal?
Yeah, we're going to have a briefing pretty much after this press conference from the United States about an update on the peace process that they've been engaged in. Of course, what we want to see is sustainable peace for Afghanistan. We want all the parties to come together. Sustainable peace is delivered by stability, capacity building, improving economics and reconciliation. All those factors have to be taken into account. But, if the Taliban, for example, enter into a lasting ceasefire, that's going to be a really important condition for progressing with Afghanistan. We don't want to be in Afghanistan any longer than we have to be, but we also recognise a threat emanates from Afghanistan, from ISIS, from Al-Qaeda and other groups who directly target the United Kingdom and European allies. But we also know that in order for Afghanistan to have a long-term future, we have to invest in that country. And that's what we'll continue to do so, as long as the Afghan government wants us to be there.
That's great.
Well done. Good.
Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Take
Cheers.
it, Jonathan.
Cheers.
Bye. The camera? Who's interviewing me?
It's me.
Yeah.
It's again on Iraq because the United States, they're asking for more burden sharing, and they're saying European partners should engage more in Iraq. But at the same time, you are already present. So what? Like, how do you comment those?
Well, you know, the NATO mission in Iraq does some elements of training. There is certainly an opportunity to do more of that training. At the moment, you know, unilaterally or bilaterally, we do other tasks in Iraq. And so I think this is really exploring that if the United States decides that it's going to do less in that field of nation building or security or capacity building, is there scope for NATO or anybody else to step up? And it's definitely in Britain and Germany's interest for Iraq to be stable, for Iraq to be able to deal with its own problems, and we should help it get there.
At the end of the week, there will be the security conference in Munich, and some people are saying, yeah, the security union of the Western states is failing, that there is no common approach anymore. With America wants this, and the UK has Brexit, and the European partners are doing their thing. Like, do you think it's true, or is there still...
I don't think it's true, and I was due to be in Munich, but we have a cabinet in the United Kingdom, so I can't attend now. But look, we all have a common adversary. We all suffer in Europe from malign activity of Russia targeting both our civil society through misinformation and cyber attacks. We have military destabilization by Russia in Ukraine, and all of that feeds through, and also in the Balkans, where we see quite explicit Russian interference, and also indeed in the Baltic states, where we see some genuine worries. So we have a common adversary. We have common threats, even from further afield, where these countries are trying to destabilize our way of life and challenge the rules-based system. So I don't think the West is at all losing its way. I think it's got to decide how it tackles those threats. But we all sit around a table and agree we do have the same threat and we do have the same adversaries. So if you've got that, it's not a big jump to work out how you're going to tackle that. Some of that will be done unilaterally as your own country. Some of that is going to be internationally through organisations like NATO, and the 75th anniversary summit in December, where NATO agreed to go to hybrid and cyber, shows that this is a proper thing to do at a multilateral level. So all of those are possible. We are doing it. We're starting to move against it. Could we be quicker? Could we be more nimble? Yes, we could. Will Britain not engage because it's left Brexit? Not at all. Just because we're no longer in the European Union, the security of Europe is incredibly important to us and to the United Kingdom, and we'll continue to invest in that.
Okay, so, but again, like you say, we have one enemy, but do we have one strategy of the Western world to tackle those challenges?
I think we're getting there. We certainly have worked out where the best places are to often tackle that. So NATO is playing a strong role, whether that is in policing its airspace on its eastern borders, or indeed making sure that we uphold freedom of navigation in different parts of the world. But also bilaterally, when I was the security minister, I'd work strongly with Germany on areas around cybercrime, on international terrorism, and indeed organised crime. So we are actually starting to deliver a pushback to those adversaries. And I think you're going to see that it's going to accelerate, not decelerate, and not splinter.
Thank you.
And in
Good.
the NATO process that you just mentioned, the process of soul search.
You what? I've got to go. Sorry. Okay. Don't worry. Thank you very much.